Tonight, the devil will be in the details, and those details could be the key to the jobs plan success, the jobs plan that the president will be discussing with us in his address this evening. Harry Holzer says that if the president is able to target the money very specifically, he could put a dent in the unemployment rate. Harry was chief economist for the U.S. Department of Labor and currently is a professor at the Georgetown Public Policy Institute. He's with us from Washington. Harry, you know firsthand, you have seen the numbers yourself at the Labor Department, how public policy can be successful and how it cannot be successful. What does the president need to do to have the greatest impact?
Well, there's two kinds of approaches that one could take. One approach is to have a really broad-based stimulus to try to stimulate overall demand and more spending in the economy. And that's just not in the cards at all, given the fears of deficits and the whole political situation. So the other approach that I think the president wants to take is something more targeted, directly on job creation in key sectors, making it more attractive for employers to pick up workers when they're right on the margin of whether they want to do that or not. And I think that's the approach.
Specifically, how do you do that?
Well, I think one idea, and I think we're going to see some version of this in the president's speech, is to have tax credits for firms that create jobs. Now, my personal preference would be for a very generous tax credit, maybe somewhere 25 to 50% of new wages, but only targeted at firms that are really raising their payrolls. My guess is that the president is going to go for something more modest, a less generous tax cut, spread more broadly across a lot more firms.
Okay, what other options might he have other than this more generous tax cut idea that you're raising?
Well, first of all, he does want to extend some things that are already in place that are expiring, like the payroll tax cut for workers, right, as well as extra unemployment insurance benefits. And I think those are both good ideas. Aside from that, he clearly wants to have more infrastructure spending on roads and bridges, spending on school construction and school repair.
Does that work?
As well
I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to know, again, having, from the benefit of your experience, not just as an academic, but having worked at the Labor Department, is that going to work? Are we going to see people say that infrastructure spending, construction and the like, is one way to get people to work more or less right away? Do you support it as a policy?
I do support it. And I think, first of all, it makes sense for the economy because those things do enhance our productivity over the long run. But in the shorter term, it is a good way. We have a lot of unemployed construction workers. That sector got hit really hard. This is a way to directly put them back to work relatively quickly, if you can get moving on the plans fairly quickly.
You mentioned that it does come down to how the policy is implemented and specifically what it contains. How about the size? One of your peers, as it were, Nariman Baravesh, an economist from IHS Global Insight, was talking to us earlier today, and he said $300 billion is simply not enough, partly because extending the payroll tax credit accounts for $150 billion of it, but also because size is important here. It would need to be, to really move the needle on the unemployment rate, $800 to $900 billion. Do you agree with him?
Sure. In an ideal world, I would love to see an $800, $900 billion stimulus. That approach is the broader approach, trying to stimulate overall demand and overall economic growth. And again, if I had my choice, I would probably do that. But I think it's not in the cards, both politically and given deficit concerns. So I think there is an alternative, much more targeted, much more directly on job creation. And if you structure the policies the right way, I think that could move the needle as well. Maybe not quite as much as $800 or $900 billion of stimulus, but it could still do some good.
All right, Harry, thanks for putting it into perspective.